I know that the Mac Pro lines where you were able to get highly customized special order. You know, you call up Apple. You know, if you ordered 20 units or whatever for your office or something, and you needed a special configuration, they do it. Now, I am hearing though complaints, especially in the video card category.
No, that was the other thing I wanted to get into here. I'm honestly wondering what they were thinking with the video card options they have here, because they're not the best GPUs. My guess is, honestly, as of late, the company I've really been liking as far as workstation GPUs has been P&Y.
Right.
Bang for the buck wise, they're pretty good cards. Now, they're primarily aftermarket, and my guess is Apple isn't using them here because my guess is, unless you're a geek and you're actually looking for a workstation machine, you've probably never heard of P&Y. You've heard of ATI or NVIDIA. And some of their cards are a little weird. Like if you were to glance at their specs at first glance, like one of their cards has 4 HDMI outs on the back of it, and it's actually a 512 card, but it's a 2 GPU card with built-in 4 monitor support in the same high resolution, the 2500, like the Mac Pro and high-end machines do. And I'm like, you know, I can think of a lot of work environments where, even though it's not a 1 gig or 2 gigahertz card, that's the better card to go with, because you're only burning 1 DIMM and you have all of that, and then you can add workhouse GPUs in the other slots.
Yeah, and also, I've not heard or can confirm if Crossfire SOI works in the Mac Pro, and a lot of people automatically think games with that. That's no.
No, that's very useful in this type of stuff.
Video actually use their bridges for a lot of scientific model execution and sharing the load of physics on each card. And that's a big deal. I know ATI even went up to having 4 stacked on trying to do a physics model. So yeah, it's not for gaming, and that would definitely go in line with what you're talking about, and being able to have highly specialized computer to handle. I think you're talking about video rendering or
well, no, it's like, and the thing is, more and more when I look at the Mac Pro, it's almost becoming, especially in that arena, because of the box the Mac Pro puts you in. If you want to go the OS X route, you need to buy a Mac Pro and spend a lot of money on it, and then you need to tie a PC to the Mac Pro for expandability, which is that's kind of a long way to go about. It's like once you start having to do that, you're almost like, okay, why don't I just start on the PC side to begin with?
Sure.
And it's even though I hate Apple, honestly, because competition is good and competition helps more things on out, this is kind of something I'm hoping some point soon here Apple figures out a way to address if they're not going to license OS X, so that competition stays active and in place, because there's been a lot of things that have come about in that pro arena as of late because of that competition. I don't want that competition to go away. If everybody switches over to PC and starts dumping Macs because Mac just doesn't suit their needs anymore, that competition is going to go away. And
yeah. What we're talking about even now, I mean, what is the Mac market share in the world? Still, I mean, in the United States is what, 10%?
In the world, it's less than, depending which chart you look at, but it's around 8%. But there are certain markets in which they're larger, and this is one of the markets, the one we're talking about, that they claim to be king. I'm not really so sure they are, because it's more and more, it's little impasses like this are coming up, where people are like, I need a decent machine, not an Apple machine. And that's one of those things. And people who are true professionals who are in that stuff, why they're brand loyal. They're not that brand loyal. They're not. They're gonna go. I'm not gonna take drop RAM cycles. I'm not gonna take underclock time. The other thing, like you were talking about with Crossfire, is I honestly don't know, because Apple is really bad about on their site about providing pure specs. But I'm wondering, even if you do get 4 ATI cards and stick them in here with the RAID card and having them all right next to each other, because usually when I do that type of configuration in the system, I prefer to stick it in a 6 or 7 PCI Express slot system so the cards aren't right next to each other for a little extra heat dissipation. Especially if any of those cards are those 2 DIMM ones, because those 2 DIMM ones, by the way, if you're adding aftermarket stuff to your system, I recommend, if you can afford to wait, to stay away from those 2 DIMM version of GPU graphics cards, because I found, especially if you're in an environment where they're on all the time, the heat dissipation is not perfect on those. And if you're in an area where it's hot, over time they build up a heat reserve where your only option is to turn the system off for 12 hours and turn it back on. And if you wait 6 to 18 months, the card gets half as much, and it winds up being a 1 DIMM card that then has proper heat dissipation. It's the constant in graphics cards, always. It's that 2 DIMM card will be a 1 DIMM card in the next version. They just rushed it out now as a 2 DIMM card. But getting back to the thing, I would love to know the specs of the power supply in the Mac Pro. And because Mac isn't too good about giving detail, I mean, you kind of have to dig through the specs to figure out which Intel chip they shove in there. They don't say, we stuck this Intel in there. You have to look at all the specs and then go to arc.intel.com and figure out, oh, it's this one. Okay. That's, like, I don't know why they consider this some trade secret. And don't bother calling the Apple geniuses.
Yeah. I don't just like this either. When it comes to power chips, and I wasn't really advocating licensing out OS 10 back then, because I liked the whole different hardware world. But now, if you're going to be into,
there's no reason for it anymore. And it's made Hackintoshes that much easier, but they're technically not legal, so we don't advocate them here, because they're technically illegal. Even though, yeah, you can build one, but beware of the wrath of Steve Jobs. But what I'm wondering, like you were saying with the Crossfire, a lot of times, and this is an option I always see in the PC side of things, is to buy a more powerful power supply. Because the baseline power supply usually does not have enough connectors to support features like that. And I don't know if this is or isn't the case in the Mac Pro. I don't know what kind of power supply they've stuck in there, if it can handle that or not. Just because it has the PCI slots, okay, PCI Express technically, but just because it has the expansion slots doesn't mean it has enough power to run that. And and they don't say on their thing. The power supplies for that, they're not cheap. They start at like $200, and really, if you're going to be in a system like that in an always-on environment, you want to spend the extra $100 for one with completely removable power cables, so you only have the cables in there you need.
Yeah.
Which I'm pretty sure isn't how the Mac Pro's built. I've never taken one apart and seen removable power cables. I've seen them dipped around to the corner like any OEM does, but not...
I'm actually looking on the specs to see if they even...
They don't offer it. At least, I didn't check on the 12-core. They don't offer it on the quad-core. Let me check on the 12-core and see if they do. I don't think they actually... Let me see, graphics. Yeah, they'll only let you put 2 cards in, which makes me... I don't think they have enough power in there to support 4.
What do you think it is? Maybe 700 watt? I don't know.
I could see them, if they optimized it right, because they're only including 4 hard drives, getting away with the 650, 700. But really, in a system like this, especially if you're going to be doing things like Crossfire, You want a 1,000 watt. You want an 850 to 1,000 watt power supply, if not a 1,200.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not very green. but yeah, and I mean, I'm looking here. I don't think that's what they stuck in, because it's evident by the fact they're not offering now. That's something that'd be real useful in this system, to be quite honest. Which means, honestly, I'm having a hard time seeing unless I see most people who actually need to be buying this machine needing to turn it into a Frankentosh to get full use out of it. It's one of those, if I have to put that much work into it, why am I buying it in the first place type thing. Which I don't want to waste Apple's time, call them up and go, well, how much would it be to put all these parts in here so that it actually served the niche it's designed for? It's like, I know what the rate is. That's $700. They're not going to give you 6 RAM. That's not going to happen. I'd prefer the system that maxed out at 48 as opposed to 32. Excuse me, 36.
I can't believe that. That's pretty tough to find the power supply.
It's nowhere on here. You'd have to take a Mac Pro apart and look at it.
Yeah, I know the G5s have 600 watt or 6.
Well, it's like, and I don't know if Apple hides specs like this because they think people don't care about them, or because they don't want you doing true direct comparisons. You could argue either way. It's the Apple logic is it should all be hidden and behind the scenes, and you shouldn't be thinking about these things. And it's not like they really hide specs. I mean, they tell you the memory is blah frequency. They tell you the important parts of the chip. They just don't tell you which model number it is. So you don't get all the other detailed specs. Which admittedly most people wouldn't care about, but people who need to be buying this type of system care about all of that stuff. That's because I don't know. A lot of this is just, it's like the machine's been artificially limited, and at the end of the day, the question I keep asking myself is,